And then going forward is also the grandchildren and moving down. So these are our descendants are always of great concern to us. And often being in strange, different circumstances, there is that concern which is there. And that is a natural concern, wherever you are. And even if you're in some other country where there's a majority Muslims, it's still a concern that a person is worried about their children. So many people are making efforts and very differing in the way they may make that effort with different understandings. But I think when we think about our families and our generations to come, we come back to what is the look of Islam. Really, we come back to what is at the core of deen. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in Quran, told us in the Quran, قُوا أَنفُسُكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. But as in the aeroplane, you take the mask falls, so you've got to take the mask first yourself. Because if you don't do that, you can't save anybody else. You can't help somebody else with their mask. Likewise, why it is really at the core of what is Islam is that how can I be of benefit to others when I don't have it myself? So we've got to look at really the actions that are required of me in those circumstances. And ultimately, we have to have that yaqeen, that certainty of iman, that my children, I'm not their murabbi. I'm really not the one who's going to raise them. Ultimately, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I have responsibilities which I need to fulfill and make my effort so that means are there, and that is what I'll be asked about. But ultimately, if the children, what path they will take, that is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we know that Allah is the one who does. And the creation can do nothing. Or al-mu'id, or al-mudil, or al-nafi', or al-dar. So the creation does nothing except by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's our mabda. That's where we need to start. But that I have responsibilities within that. So we found that in Australia, it is a massive problem. Families don't know the environment in which they are in. Many have become migrated. Language is a problem. But alhamdulillah, we've had some very good results with some families. Even coming from an area where they didn't really understand the language nor the culture in which they were entering. So that's the first thing we need to understand. And the second one is that al-mu'minuna wal-mu'minat awliya ba'duhum ba'd. Ya'muruna bil ma'ruf wa yanhauna 'anil munkar wa yuqimuna as-salata wa yu'tuna az-zakata ila akhirih. So the mu'minin, the men and the women, are partners together in this house and in all of deen. And it is not that it is one person, but both are involved in and need to be on the same page and have the same concerns and the same considerations for a healthy environment to be created in the house. And kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi. So therefore we are being told by Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam we have that responsibility. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us that we are partners together. in the protection of deen and the establishment of deen. So that comes with important consequences. The other point is that we need to be aware of what I say in the house. So we need to teach. One time, a Bedouin came to us, I think it was Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, about wudu. So nearby there was a young 5-year-old playing with a stick as if it was a horse. Going around. He said, go and talk, ask him. So I went to the child. I said, Abdullah ibn Abbas sent me here just to ask you about wudu. He said, well, the fara'id of wudu are this. Explained it to him. Is that all you need, uncle? Yes. And then continue playing. Because they'd learned that in their houses. The child learned all the basics of deen that they needed from their house, not in a maktab. That the child grew up knowing what is wudu, what is usul, what are the mabadi of deen, which if you send your child to a maktab, one of the different madahib, for instance in Shafi madhab, Safinat al-Najah, it's got all of the details, basic details that children need. So that is learned first. For more explanation, more detailed explanation, then the children go to the ulama. Maybe the imam of the masjid or something. So that education needs to happen in the house. And do I know that? So I need to know that before I can teach it to my children. Number one. Also the Asma'ullah al-Husna should be there in the house. Read. You can read it with some nice tune. Children can memorize it. But they also need to know what that means. Those Asma'ullah al-Husna are in our conversation. If our conversations in the house are that this one did this, and this one did this, and this Zalim did this, and this, without detail, then we're saying one thing to the children that Allah does, and then we must follow the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But our conversations are negating that. So we need to have muraqabah, attention on what are my conversations in my house. Are they strengthening the iman of the children? Or are they in contradiction to what I'm saying to the children? That we know that Allah does, and that Allah has put us in Darul Asbab, and that He has shown in His Sunnah what we should do. I'm not meaning here when I say Sunnah, Fard, or Sunnah, not the fiqh. I'm talking about the life of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What are the actions He did? What maqsad He was sent? To take medicine, that we have evidence that He took this or this. Not medicine like, down the pharmacy, but, ashab or whatever, but equivalent things they would take. Hijama was there. That's a cure. But it is not that does, but it is that Allah does. But we adopt the a'mal of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in our house, so that this is how we live. So we have du'as before we do anything, as a protection from shaitan. Before the children sleep, they don't know yet, Qul huwallahu ahad, Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq, Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. But we read it and we wipe them. As soon as they have the age that they can read those, because this is sunnah before sleeping. All these things we can find very clear in books like Riyadh Salihin, Azkar Imam Nawawi, Kitab al-Azkar, All those things that were done by Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, we can do them in our houses as children learn about those from very young. We read it in a loud voice. But what they see from us is what they get, particularly when they're very young. Ages of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they're the ages when we play with our children. But if I'm not there, how can I play with my children? Not the whole day. Of course, we have work. But the play with the children is part of their learning. And Hassan and Hussein, radiallahu anhuma, used to climb on the back of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in such. He wouldn't push them off, but he was gentle with his grandchildren. But when it came to a matter of deen, he also taught them not to just pick up a date from anywhere, because it could be the date of sadaqah. Okay. You can have another date, but not that date. Because we don't know where it's come from. It could have been, it's in the place where there's some sadaqah came. So there's play, but also there's teaching along the way. They're only very young. So that kind of environment is created in the house. How to interact in the house. Because the interactions in the house, as of the interactions of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, were zawjati. As we learn from also from the lives of Sahaba, how were their interactions. But if we don't have that tarbiyah, imaniyah in the house, then we're not an example, and the children won't be seeing the example which is required. So right at the foundation is that I need to make effort on myself so to know what are the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that what Allah wants from me at this point in time. What is the appropriate thing for me to do at this point in time? I'm a conscious thinking person. I'm not just living in the house, I have a responsibility here. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, I will be asked. MashaAllah, when we go to the shop, we're very polite. I've noticed in America, people are very polite. Yes, yes, ma'am. MashaAllah, people are try to at least have the appearance of being polite, which is not always the case where we come from. But it's appreciated, and we do, and we're polite back to the people. Complete stranger. And we appreciate if somebody says thank you, please. We appreciate that kind of. So when we get home, do we just hang up our coat and with it all of that akhlaq and adab? You have to think, if I'm that like nice to a stranger, how should I be in my house? How polite should I be in my house? How appreciative should I be in my house? Man lam yashkur an-nas, lam yashkur Allah. The person who doesn't thank people hasn't thanked Allah. We know that person could only do it because it was from Allah. There's no problem in thanking people. Allah used that person but the person did it in a nice way. So that shukr is lillah. But he said, maybe given to that person. But this is lillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this. Use this person for some khair. I feel good now, this person's treated me well. What about in my own house? Because the children live amongst the mu'amala, the living of the parents, of the mother and the father. So we're trying to create an environment of iman, because we don't have children to have iman. If we don't create that environment in the house, we're not a qudwa, we're not an example. So what are the children going to learn? In actual fact, not to criticize me, but in a sense, there is some nifaq in that. Not in the sense of iman, but there is a hypocrisy in that. I'm saying this is correct, but what I'm doing is wrong. And children are very, very perceptive. They're sometimes too honest. They'll say, why are you so tall? Why are you so fat? Because they're young, so they haven't got the filter yet. So they just say the things. So if they see in the house something which is not, doesn't fit from what we are saying, if they don't say it, they will feel it. So each and every action I do, I need to make muhasabah. So we're not angels though, we make mistakes. But we need to recognize that. We need to be aware of that. That I'm just as much as I'm careful outside of my house, I'm more careful within my house. It's not just a place I go to relax and just, what you see outside is something different from what's inside. No. The real, genuine person. So if you really want to know what a bloke's like, you should ask his missus. Because she'll be able to tell you. Or vice versa. Because we're natural at home. But how that naturalness of us in the house can be on our sunnah. So this is very important for us to be aware. So I have to build my ability. I need to create a situation where the Sirah Nabawiyya is ready in my house. That's minimum. Where's the Sirah? Get one nice one, maybe in Arabic, maybe in English. If the children know Arabic and you've got one that's Arabic English, then you read Arabic English. Or you read in Arabic, there's some hard words they can learn. Or it's Urdu, or whatever language. Those languages which have a lot of Islamic texts. But they should also know it in English. So then the example, the ultimate example for our children is Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How many times have we done khatam of the seerah as a family in our house? We should ask ourselves. How are we going to create the love of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in our children if they've never read the seerah or never heard seerah? What is the place of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu? Who is Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas related to? And then also those who come later. We start with the life of Nabi Sallallahu. And then the people who, because his life is not out of context. His life is amongst his companions. And things happen between the companions. Some funny things, some serious things. And how did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam deal with that? So they're the bedtime stories for our children. They're the bedtime stories for us. We need them. And we need to hear it again and again. So that mahabba, that love of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is increased in our hearts. Because the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How do we inculcate that in our children? It's not going to happen just in a vacuum. We have to do that. And some of the ulama say that at least once in a year we should do a khatam of the seerah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in our houses. Actually, just once. Have we ever done it in our life? Let alone with our children. I mean, we should ask ourselves that question. Be honest with ourselves. It's never too late. But we say we love Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We do. But to what point? And so the life of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his sunnah will not be revived until that love is deep. And it's a love which creates action. One of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was eating in a majlis where I think it's either the Romans or the Persians, and some food dropped from the plate or whatever they were using, and so he picked it up and he went to eat it. So the other person was sitting with him and said, "These people find this strange." He said, I would leave the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for these stupid or silly people. That much is his love of sunnah. He said, how I can leave it? It's not possible to leave. This is sunnah. clear sunnah, clearly described in the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam about picking up. But of course, it's not etiquette in that particular circumstance, but he's not going to leave that sunnah. And all of the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam have a strength in them. One time there were some people, and one wanted to drink water, and he quickly sat down. So at the time there was some non-Muslim passing. He said, "Why did this person sit down?" He said, "Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, when you drink, you should sit down." He said, "If he's got the solutions to this point, what about the solutions to the problems of the world?" And he became Muslim. It just hit his heart. Your Nabi took so much care, even to this. So, I'm not saying that's fault or what, I'm not going into fiqh matters of it, but it has a value because it's what our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did and advised us to do. So in our house, those children should be alive, but from the seerah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, from his companions. So they can tell you their names, they can tell you who they are, what is their history, what is their relationship. Why did, after the passing of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Abu Bakr said, "Let's go and visit Ayman," as Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to do. They know in this house that if we have anybody who is sick, we go to visit them. Why do we do that? Because that is sunnah. It's not because everybody, if we don't go, people get upset with us because we didn't go. Or that we visited the relatives. Why do we visit the relatives? Because that's part of our deen. There's reasons for it, and it's given there. And it was how they acted in Medina Munawwara. We can do those things. They're not really outrageous things to do. But if they're done as, that's what my parents used to do, that's their habit. No, it's part of my deen. And I understand where it fits in my deen. And why my deen is such that we look at the community, we look after it. So this should be the habits in our houses. So much to talk about, so many things to say. But we need to go away with practical things which we start doing in our houses. And if we've missed the boat, my kids are already teenagers. And I said, well, I didn't do all that when they were younger. That's okay. We all make mistakes. So we do istighfar and tawbah with a lot of dua. But we can't suddenly apply the things that we should have done before. Suddenly now we do it. We get excited. MashaAllah, we have to do this in the house, and we have to do. The guys are 17-year-old, 18-year-old, teenager, all sorts of things going on in the head, and the hormones are running through. I'm a teacher, believe me. I'm glad my own kids. Not ready to hear those things. So now I need some wisdom. How do I do this? But I apply it for myself, and I live it. I change. And I have an ear that is open. And if we look at this seerah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, look at the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, one of the most important things in all situations is building relationships. You go, and now if you go into teaching whatever, the most important thing is you build relationships. It's not just enough, I'm the father, you're my son, you're going to listen to me. That's not building relationships. You need to respect me. There needs to be reasons for respect. And if I live as I know my Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam lived and his companions, we earn respect. There's a natural respect that follows from it. It's something we don't demand because it doesn't work. Unless there is, we can remind that we need to be respectful. But there needs to be that environment of respect created. And that's because I always have an ear to listen. And I'm not judgmental. And I think of how I can teach in this situation. So my kids should be able to come home from school. I come home from work and we can talk about what happened today as a family. So a family has a mashwara in their house. There's open communication between the members of the household. We know what is happening to each other. which is not necessarily the way all of us are brought up. Back in the village or back in the town or where I came from. The model that I have is not necessarily the model of Deen. It doesn't mean to say that I'm the boss, Rijal Qawwamun 'ala Nisa, so that's it, that's how it's going to be. We live in a very different time, a different era. We need to look back at how it was in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And how that tarbiyah was there of the men, and the tarbiyah of the women, and the tarbiyah of the children. And that will only come with sunnah. So we need to revive in our house a couple of things. The dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talking about Allah and His Nabi. In my conversations, that needs to be there. Dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be tilawat of Quran. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah. Salawat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So important. Why do we do it? And the istighfar. But I'm the one who's doing that. My children have me as an example. And you all have done it. You pray 2 rak'ah, you're praying at home, you're doing some nafil salah, and the 2 or 3-year-old is always right next to you. And they're coming down and doing sajda, or they might be climbing over you, whatever. But they're engaged with you while you're doing that. These are important, but also having a halaqat of ta'aleem in the house. 2 things, or 3 things in that halaqah are important. It only has to be doesn't have to be hours and hours every day. But 3 things you need. One is the basic fiqh of deen as they're growing up. And that can be by action. We teach them how to take wudu. They watch me taking wudu, and I show them how to take wudu. Later on, the details of what is compulsory, what's not compulsory, well, that can come out later on. But this interaction which is there. So that's important to have. The life of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions. Also very important. And the virtues of actions. The virtues of reading Quran. The virtues of, so many things are there. Why are we doing these things? The kids know why we're doing that. Not just we do it. That's the way we do it. They need to know why. And so Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam explained so to his companions the reasons behind the reward for these things. We go into the market and we 1 million hasan. So when we go into the market, I read it, and my kids read it with me. It might look a little strange sometimes, but they now know I've got 1 million hasan. And some of the Sahaba, they stepped out again so they could go in the second time and say it. They get 2 million. So they were counting. So kids know, why aren't we taking wudu at home? And then we're driving the car, but we're parking a little bit further away. Every mosque's got a problem. Anywhere you go in the world, parking. Can the owner of the Toyota, please move their car? The car's not to bring you to the masjid. It's to get you closer so you can walk. You have to change what's up here. So the kids walk with me to the masjid. It doesn't be half a mile, it doesn't have to be 2 miles, but they're close enough that it's 200 meters away, 300 meters away, depending how old they are. We walk to the masjid. We walk as a family to the masjid. Because for each footstep, they know why they're walking. As the Sahab did, they took short footsteps. Because they knew for every footstep, there's 1 hasan. And 1 sin is wiped out. And they go 1 daraja extra in Jannah. So the kids know from very young, why am I walking? My dad, why don't you go all the way to the masjid? They got a car park there. Because we don't want to crowd the car park, we want to give ikram to the other people. Already one thing taught. Ikram. I want other people to be able to park there because we're a bit early. So we can park a bit further away, park nice and legally, we don't annoy anybody, and now we can walk. Now in walking, We took our wudu at home, didn't we? So we get for every footstep. So the kids are young, they're learning what it is to be a Muslim. So they need to hear them. And so those things are important, 3 things. To learn those things and understand those things. So we need to get the books which are there. Different books of virtues are there. There's books of seerah. Now a lot more from when I first became Muslim 47 years ago, trying to get something with a translation that you could actually read, that you didn't need to have a dictionary next to you to look up. There's a lot, very, very, very good translations from many very good people from here in the States, a lot, but with very readable English. And the books of fiqh are there also. Simple, the basic fiqh, so the children can know. So this we should go back. We have our dhikr, we have these things. And we have a mashwara in our house. Mashwara just is consultation, but on a family level, it's just we talk. What are we doing today? What are you doing today? Well, I've got this subject at school. Yeah, okay, fine. I've got to go at work. They're getting me to go and pick some computer somewhere or whatever. So we know each other. We know about each other. Not my dad's got some job somewhere. No. My mum, she's also, no. We all know what's going on. We're a family, and we share those things. So I'm happy to share, because you're sharing with me. And then if we want to go somewhere, we talk about it. Well, where do you want to go this year? We want to go away for a week. We're all pretty, where do we want to go? And so everybody has an opinion. Oh, yeah, we can't afford that. Money's a bit tight this year, but we could go here. What do you reckon? And we go. So we go as a family. But it's a family, everybody's participated in thinking about that. So if we can do those things in our house, it starts to change the whole atmosphere of the house and the vibe of the house. And each person is a member of that house. I belong in this house. So it's a place where I want to be. And I like being in my house. And in that way we grow. So if we just get off that screen, if we don't replace it with something, why are we saying to people get off the different things? We have to start with bringing the things which are good. So leave it at that. I went over a bit of time. But so many things to talk about, but we need to have some practical things we start to do. And it's never ever too late. But the later we've left it, then we need a little bit more wisdom. A lot of tears in front of Allah. The Lord protects us. He protects our children. We want our children to be confident. This is my country. This is where I'm born. This is the country I live in. I want this country to be with a good environment. I want this country to change so people can live in peace. That's what we want. And people can grow. But they're confident in that. And they know what they want. They're not just a tag-on in this country. None of us are tag-ons. We're members of this country and we're concerned. Just a very, very short anecdote. I was going back overseas in Australia back in 2000. So the treatment in immigration, I just felt like I was a cockroach. We were the only Australians on the flight, but they treated us like we were cockroaches. So, I was not really happy with that. So I wrote a 7-page letter to the Minister of Immigration, CC to the Minister of Customs. And I said, look, I'm a member of this country, a person of this country. I have grandchildren in this country. And I'm just concerned about the safety of this country as you are. And this airport it was a smaller airport. I said it's an international entry. And there are people who don't necessarily have all the things. They get angry very quickly. If we don't treat people properly, so it's about 7 pages like this. So I got about 1.5 page letter back, very small print. So obviously it became a big issue and they've had to do a ministerial on it and nobody likes doing that. When I next went through that airport, I was with my wife. And they changed the airport. The treatment of the lady who was checking our bags. They checked our bags, I had no problem. But she was so good, extra polite, but really, really ungenuine. So I said to her, have you got something I can fill out to praise you because you've done really well? We really appreciate it, we feel good. And she was so surprised, she said, we never get good comments. We only get the bad ones, you know, because you work in public service, you get the bad ones, and the people treat you good, they just went through. She said, oh yeah, please, here's something you can write. Because I felt, you know, when they treated me badly, I'm going to comment. But now I've been treated well, I should also praise, because that is good. So thanking her is thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he changed. And another brother, his wife is of Malay background, and he's Anglo. So his son's a mix, as most of us are nowadays. And so he got held up in immigration, but the name is still Anglo name, surname. So this officer held him up for an hour. Where'd you get this surname from? Pretty rude. And we were talking, we gathered somewhere, we were talking. I said, write a letter. I said, you get a response. So he wrote a letter. And then at the end of the letter, he said, if you want me to talk to your officers, I'm only too willing to come down and have a talk with them. She got a whole letter back. We apologise for that. Yes, we would like you to come down and talk to our officers. She got to go down and talk to the immigration and customs officers about an hour or so to talk with them about the impact of what they say and how they should interact and why. He said it was very positive. We had the confidence to do that. It's our country. But I want this country to be a good environment. But I need to build that in my house. And I need to be part of that. Good environment, as in environment of sunnah. Because that's the only thing which is going to save humanity. Is if people come onto sunnah. Because it's the way to get success in this world and the hereafter. But we have to create that asas first. And that asas is our houses. And so we learn and our children learn how to interact in society. And so society have got the examples of how a Muslim lives, which is what the people in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had in front of them with him, and it's an example, Sadiq al-Amin, but also his companions. People could see how these guys had changed. And so they knew what was there. Jazakumullah khair, you all listened very nicely. I'm not a person really to talk, but I'm really only saying things that I need to do. It's really what we all need to do. It's not that some people are doing, some people are doing a better job than others, but we could all improve and we can all do better. Now let's subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq and accept all of your efforts. Inshallah, protect all of your generations for years to come. Subhanallah.